Well, the United States is officially now in an actual recession.
Are making it official. We are in a recession.
Now, this shouldn't come as a bombshell revelation to anyone that hasn't been living under a rock for the last few months. However, we are definitely living in historic times, that's for sure. Now, while you do have to watch out for the virus, you also don't want to catch a case of smashing that like button. Be sure to give the video a big thumbs up. Just hit that like button. It'll just increase the YouTube algorithm so that more people can see videos just like this, and YouTube will push it out to even more people. Now, this might seem obvious with double-digit unemployment, plunging economic output, and very low consumer confidence, but now it's official. So if there was any remaining doubt that the US is in a recession, it has now been removed by the official scorekeepers at the National Bureau of Economic Research. So the Bureau's Business Cycle Dating Committee, which is the head honcho, has said that the expansion peaked in February after a record 128 months, and that now we are into a pandemic-driven recession since. What was mainly looked at was, quote, unprecedented magnitude of the decline in unemployment and production and its broad reach across the entire economy. But at the same time, the committee did note that this recession could be short-lived. The U.S. added 2.5 million jobs last month after losing more than 22 million in March and April. So many forecasters are saying that economic output should start up again in the third quarter. Now, you hear the term recession, but what does that exactly entail? Well, the standard, just basic definition of it is, quote, a decline in economic activity that lasts more than a few months. And the committee decided that this downturn is so severe that it does earn the recessionary title, even if the upside happens again very quickly. Now, according to Investopedia themselves, they do say that a recession is typically recognized as 2 consecutive quarters of an economic decline, as reflected by GDP in conjunction with monthly indicators such as a rise in unemployment. But the National Bureau of Economic Research, or the NBER, which officially declares recessions, says that the 2 consecutive quarters of decline in real GDP are not how it is defined anymore, and the NBER defines a recession as a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy, lasting more than a few months, normally visible in real GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. So with this scenario, the damage is so indelible and so irreparable that we are in a recession, even though it hasn't necessarily lasted for more than a couple quarters. Now, even though this comes off as bad news, you do have to look at it from this side. This marked, right before the pandemic, the largest expansion in U.S. history. As of July, the U.S. was officially in its longest expansion ever, breaking the record of 120 months of economic growth from March 1991 to March 2001. So the month of July 2019 marked the 121st month of economic expansion arising out of the Great Financial Crisis, making it the longest run on record going back to 1854. So how do you ultimately determine when a recession is over? Well, from an official point of view, recessions end when the economic bleeding stops, even if the patient takes years to recover. Now, the committee does point to February, in which the month of the economy peaked and the recession began, but the quarterly peak came at the end of last year. The economy slowed so sharply in March as the government tried to halt the spread of the virus, it erased the gains of January and February and turned economic output for the first quarter negative. And unemployment skyrocketed from 3.5% in February to 14.7% in April, and then dropping to 13.3% last month. But states are starting to reopen, production is picking up, jobs are starting to come back. This could be a short-lived recession, but at the same time, it is a double-edged sword because you could have a second wave coming. The US recently surpassed 2 million cases, and now you're seeing a resurgence of brand new cases in more than a dozen states. For example, in Texas, total cases have shot up by 1/3 in just the last 2 weeks. And at the same time, though, Governor Greg Abbott is moving ahead with plans to let virtually all businesses keep expanding capacity by the end of this week. The Arkansas Governor, Asa Hutchinson, is insisting that the recent surges in infections and hospitalizations aren't tied to his lifting restrictions. North Carolina is now reporting its highest ever levels of new infections and hospitalizations, but just one state, Utah, has paused the next phase in its reopening plan amid a 2-week spike in new cases. So the rest of the year may not be as rosy as we would like it to be. They say if we do see an entire duplicate of what we already saw, that it could take more than 2 years for the US to go back to its pre-COVID-19 levels. On top of that, the news out of the World Bank on Monday was also grim. It predicted that the global economy would shrink 5.2% this year, and that would be the deepest recession since the end of World War II. And the World Bank also said that the pandemic and economic crisis could send millions of people around the world into extreme poverty. Now, the US merely can't just stay in lockdown forever. but you do have to have safe practices implemented when it comes to businesses. You can have reopenings or partial reopenings, but it has to be done safely and effectively, so that way we don't just see this all happen all over again and relive through the same crisis. But I am intrigued to hear your positions and predictions. Do you think we will see a resurgence in cases in the later half of this year? Do you think we're going to have to lock down all over again? Do you think some states are opening up too quickly? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. But I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, be sure to give the video a big thumbs up, smash that like button, and if you'd like to see more videos from my channel, I post videos every single week covering business, finance, entrepreneurship, mindset, strategy, and tips and tricks from my own experience. Be sure that you do subscribe, and if you'd like to be notified every single time I make a new video so that you're first in line to see it before anyone else, be sure that you do click that little notification bell as well so that you're notified every single time I make a new video. See you in the next one.